G'day, it's Jamie, and welcome to Where's My Yowie. Today, I'm reading an old newspaper report about a Yowie origin story from the Burnett and Auburn Rivers in Queensland. So we'll get into it. This was published in the Brisbane Courier on Saturday, the 17th of March, 1928, titled Burnett and Auburn Rivers Aborigines, The Hairy Man, by George McIver. Soon after I first visited the Auburn River, I made the acquaintance of Chapman, then king by heredity of the Hawkwood tribe, or rather what remained of it. Chapman had a grievance, and he explained it fully to me as we sat in the shade of a large gum tree. The quarter moon plate and chain showing kingship had never been issued to him by the government. He had no rival, and no one disputed his claim. Hence he could not understand why the plate had not been granted to him, as in the case of the heads of other tribes. I promised to do whatever I could in the matter. On making inquiries, however, I found there were valid reasons why the plate had not been issued, so I let the matter drop. A haunted cave. More interesting was Chapman, when the conversation turned upon the cataract known as the Auburn Falls and the haunted cave concealed by them. It would appear that many years before the government had proclaimed a fairly large area in the vicinity as a reserve for the Aborigines. For ages, however, the Aborigines believed the cave to be haunted and would not go near it. Hence they made little use of the reserve, which was afterwards cancelled. Strange as it may seem, some of the early white pioneers shared the belief of the Aborigines that the cave was haunted. There can be no doubt whatever about this, for more than one of them openly and seriously averred their belief. Previous to the interview with Chapman, I had visited the cave, and there was certainly some excuse for the belief entertained by the Aborigines. Immediately behind the falls was a large, elongated hollow, which, during the course of ages, had been carved out of the granite formation by the floodwaters. The floor was a deep pool. In flood time, numerous sticks and other debris were forced into the cave and whirled around and around with the turbulent waters. In their rapid and forceful movements, the sticks continuously came in contact with the granite walls, and the ends were thus rounded so evenly and smooth as to suggest the handicraft of man rather than the work of nature. The peculiar design of the entrance precluded many of the oval-ended sticks from being carried out away as the flood waters went down. Hence there was always a good supply of them in the cave, which was not accessible at flood time. The Aborigines believed these finely turned sticks to be the work of a hairy man, whom they averred always lived in the cave and ever ready to do them harm. I explained to Chapman that I had been to the cave, but saw no hairy man. He replied that might be so, as the hairy man only worked at night. In reply to my inquiry if he had seen him, the response was in the negative, but he had often heard him at work. Chapman got a short piece of wood and began striking the ground with it in imitation of the noise made by the hairy man when busy on the sticks with his tomahawk. I mentioned to him that the tapping noises to which he referred to were doubtless produced by the sticks striking the walls as they were being hurled around and around the cave. Chapman, however, was not convinced. He pleadingly advised me not to try and visit the cave at night, and I knew that he was in earnest. The Aborigines also had a legend that if any or more than the hairy man's sticks were removed, that they would find their way back to the cave during the first night. Some of the earliest white settlers believed this legend to be true, and nothing would induce them to touch the sticks in the cave. Some of the later settlers, however, with that sticky beak element that pervades all modern thought, decided to test the legend by removing the sticks from the cave. So far, I have not heard that any of them were missing on the following day. The end. This is really interesting to me. I did a story a while back it was a fictional story called The Mystery of the Haunted Cave, Yowie fiction from 1910. And it was also written by George McIver, and he talks about this cave in particular. And it was in the story that he wrote that was about Blake staying near the cave. He also had in the middle of it a Yowie origin story about a Yowie called Kuru Brew. And apparently Kuru Brew made the first boomerang and tomahawk going by the legend. And it was weird because when I read the story at the time, I thought there's no way that this George McIver could have made up this origin story by himself because it was so intricate and detailed. And now I know that King Chapman, who was mentioned earlier in this story, was the Aborigine that must have told him the story of Kuru Brew. So if you want to hear more on this, go and watch The Mystery of the Haunted Cave. Okay, that's it from me. I'll get back to you all next time. Bye.